Today we're going to be dividing rational numbers. Again, just like last video, we are going to be focusing on fractions. So we do have two pieces of vocabulary. The first one is a reciprocal. A reciprocal is basically when you flip the numerator and the denominator on a fraction. So I have 3/4 right here. The reciprocal of 3/4, remember, we have to flip it. The reciprocal of 3/4 is 4/3. So all you have to do is just flip it over. So if we have 1/2, the reciprocal of 1/2 is 2/1. Just flip the fraction over. Alright, the next vocab word is the multiplicative inverse. The multiplicative inverse, this is a property, just like the associative property or the commutative property. But the multiplicative inverse states any fraction times its reciprocal is equal to 1. So let's just take this 3/4. So if we have 3/4 times 4/3, 4/3 is the reciprocal. Remember, multiply the numerators. We have 12. Multiply the denominators. 12. 12 divided by 12 is equal to 1. So now let's just try the number 3. What is the multiplicative inverse of number 3? Of the number 3? Or basically, what's the reciprocal? Remember, you can write the number 3 as a fraction as 3/1. So what is the reciprocal of 3/1? That's 1/3. All you have to do is flip it over. So 3 times 1 is 3. 1 times 3 is 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. So multiplicative inverse is 3/1 times 1/3 is equal to 1. 3/4 times 4/3 is equal to 1. So now, we want to know how to divide fractions. Two easy, simple steps. First one, find the reciprocal of the second fraction. This is so important. Reciprocal, we know what that is where you flip a fraction, and you only want to do it to the second fraction. Step 2, multiply the fractions together. We already learned how to multiply fractions, so we can use our prior knowledge to multiply. So let's see what we have down here. We have 1/9 divided by 5/12. So let's see here. Step 1. Find the reciprocal of the second fraction. Second fraction is 5/12. So we'll rewrite this 1/9, and the reciprocal of 5/12 is 12/5. Then you multiply after you do the reciprocal. So now we have 1/9 times 12/5. So we could cross simplify if we wanted to. We could divide both by 3. Divide both 9 and 12 by 3. So 12 divided by 3 is 4. 9 divided by 3 is 3. Then we can multiply straight across. 1 times 4 is 4. 3 times 5 is 15. So we can't reduce this anymore. So 4/15 is our answer. So if we have 1/9 divided by 5/12, the answer is 4/15. So I'm going to solve the first one for you, and then you're going to pause the video and solve the second one. So the first one, we have 3/7 divided by 8. Remember, how do you write 8 as a fraction? We can always just write that as 8/1. So remember, when we're dividing fractions, step 1, find the reciprocal of the second fraction. Then after you do that, you multiply. So if we do that, we do 3/7. The reciprocal of 8/1 is 1/8, and then we multiply it. We can't cross simplify, so let's just multiply straight across. We have 3 times 1 is 3. 7 times 8 is 56. So our final answer is 356. So now I want you to pause the video and try to divide these two fractions of 1/3 divided by 7/15, and unpause the video when you're ready to see what I've done. Alright, so remember, when we're dividing fractions, first thing, find the reciprocal of the second fraction. So if we rewrite it, we have 1/3 and we have 15/7. Second thing you do, multiply them. So we could multiply straight across, or we could cross simplify. So the greatest common factor of both 3 and 15 is 3. So we could simplify, divide both by 3, or divide 3 divided by 3, and do 15 divided by 3. So 15 divided by 3 is 5. 3 divided by 3 is 1. Now we could just multiply straight across. 1 times 5 is equal to 5. And 1 times 7 is equal to 7. So our final answer that we have 1/3 divided by 7/15 is equal to 5/7. So now we have some mixed numbers. What I'm going to do, I'm going to work the first one, and then you are going to work the second one. So remember, we need to change our mixed numbers into improper fractions before we start dividing. So we will change -6 4/5, change that to an improper fraction. So 5 times 6 is 30. 30 plus 4 is 34. So we will have -34/5 divided by, now we need to change 2 and 2/5 into an improper fraction. 5 times 2 is 10. 10 plus 2 is 12. So now we have our we've changed -6 and 4/5 and 2 and 2/5 into improper fractions. Now we need to divide our fractions. Remember, find the reciprocal of the second one and then multiply it. So if we rewrite this, -34/5, and then the reciprocal of 12/5 is 5/12, and you multiply it. So we can do a little bit of cross simplification. The greatest common factor of 5 and 5 is 5, so we can just divide those both by 5. So it'd be 1. 5 divided by 5 is 5. Same thing with the other one. Now we have a 34 and we have a 12. So if we try to find the greatest common factor of 34 and 12, it looks like that would be 2. So we could divide 12 by 2, and we could divide 34 by 2. So 12 divided by 2 is 6. 34 divided by 2 is 17. So now we have, in the numerator, we have, remember this negative sign, -17 times 1, which is equal to -17. And in the denominators, we have 1 times 6, which is equal to 6. So if we want to, we can leave this as an improper fraction, but if we change it into a mixed number, 16 goes into 17 2 times, with 5 left over. And then we keep the 6 as the denominator. But remember, this is also a negative, so it has to be a -2 and 5/6. So for the final answer of -6 and 4/5 divided by 2 and 2/5, we have -17/6, which is also equal to -2 and 5/6. So now I want you to pause the video, try the next one, and unpause the video when you're ready to see what I've done. Alright, so you have negative 4 2/3 divided by 3 1/9. So we're going to need to change both of these into improper fractions. So negative 4 2/3, we would do 3 times 4 is 12, 12 plus 2 is 14, so we'd have negative 14 thirds divided by 9 times 3 is 27, 27 plus 1 is 28, so we'd have 28 ninths. Now remember, we are dividing fractions, so we have to find the reciprocal of 28 ninths, and then we have to multiply the fractions together. So we have negative 14 thirds, and then we have 9 28ths, and we multiply them together. Looks like we could do some cross simplifying. 3 and 9, looks like the greatest common factor between those is 3, so we could divide both by 3. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. 9 divided by 3 is 3. And we have 14 and 28. It looks like the greatest common factor between both of those is 14. We could divide both by 14. So 14 divided by 14 and 28 divided by 14. So 14 divided by 14 is 1. 28 divided by 14 is 2. So now we can multiply straight across. Remember, we have that negative sign, so negative 1 times 3 is equal to a negative 3, and 1 times 2 is equal to 2. So now we have an improper fraction of negative 3 halves, or 3 over 2. If we write that as a mixed number, it would be negative 1 and 1/2. Either of these options are correct. So now we're going to be dividing some algebraic expressions. This is where cross-simplifying definitely comes into play. So if we have the first one, 5 over 3 times x times y divided by 15 divided by x times y times z. So remember, with these fractions, don't get freaked out because there are variables. So just think of how you're supposed to divide fractions. First thing you're supposed to do, find the reciprocal of the second fraction, and then multiply straight across. So keep the first fraction the same. What is the reciprocal of 15 divided by x times y times z? All you have to do, flip it over. X times y times z divided by 15. Remember, we're multiplying. So if we have, now we can cross-simplify. Cross-simplifying is huge here. Let's look at the numbers first, because this is what we're used to working with. We have 5 and 15. Looks like the greatest common factor between the two is 5. So we can divide by 5 and divide by 5. So 15 divided by 5 is 1. 15 divided by, or 5 divided by 5 is 1. 15 divided by 5 is 3. Now, let's look at the 3 times x times y and xyz. Remember, what are the common factors between 3xy and xyz? Basically, what can we cross out that are the same? That's what they want you to think of. So we have an x here, and we have an x here. We can cross these out. Same with this y and this y. We can cross these out due to the multiplicative inverse. So we can cross out this x, that x is gone, this y, and this y is gone. So let's look to see what all we have left. We can multiply straight across. We have 1 times z, which is equal to 1z, or you can just rewrite it as just plain old z, divided by, and what do we have at the bottom? We have the x and the y canceled out, so we have 3 times 3, which is 9. So the final answer that we have is z divided by 9. Now what I want you to do is to pause the video, look at my example, and to solve your own example. We have 5 times x 5xy divided by 6, all divided by 10 times y over 7. So unpause the video when you're ready to see what I've done. So remember, we must, when we're dividing fractions, find the reciprocal, then multiply the fractions. So we will have 5xy over 6. The reciprocal of 10y over 6 is, or 10y over 7 is 7 over 10y, and then you multiply them. If we do some cross simplifying, we could simplify, well, we can't simplify 6 and 7 because there aren't any common factors between them. But we can simplify over here. We can simplify the 5 and the 10. Even though these are attached to some variables, we can still simplify the numbers. So we can simplify this. We can divide the greatest common factor of 5 and 10. We can divide both by 5. So 10 divided by 5 is 2. 5 divided by 5 is 1. And then we can also cross simplify. We have a y down here in the denominator of the second one, and we have a y in the numerator of the first one, so these can cancel out. So there goes that y, and there goes that y. Now I think we've cross simplified as much as we could. So now let's multiply straight across. We have 1 times x times 7. So we would have 7x, and that's in our numerator. Now in our denominator, we have 6 times 2, because the 10 was simplified down to 2, and this y was crossed out. So 6 times 2 is equal to 12. So our final answer is 7 times x divided by 12.